Good morning. We are moving our focus from the Jewish dispensation of time, and I want us to refocus again on the little horn. To do this, I want to take you back to Daniel chapter 7, and I'm going to be reading verse 23 and 24. The angel gave Daniel this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. I want you to notice here that we're not referring to this kingdom by means of a label. It's not a lion, it's not a bear, it's not a leopard. It's a kingdom that cannot be described. Yet, as we look at the characteristics, we have noticed that this is the pagan Roman Empire, and that it was different not because it didn't rule the whole world, but in the way in which it ruled the whole world. It gave those that were subject to it the privilege of governing themselves spiritually and from a political point of view. But I also want you to notice that this one kingdom breaks up into 10 kingdoms, as we've just read there. The 10 horns are 10 kings that will come from the pagan Roman Empire. And out of these 10 kingdoms, one kingdom rises. It will subdue 3 of the others. And we see that it will be different. Different in what way? Different again, not by the way in which it exercises its political power, but by the fact that it also exercises a spiritual power. Now, to understand this little horn more, we are going to take different studies to do this. And today I want to draw your attention to Daniel chapter 8, where we are again going to talk about this little horn. And it says there in verse 10, it grew until it reached the host of heavens, and it threw some of the starry host down to the earth and trampled on them. This little horn does something, and it draws our attention back. Daniel is drawing our attention back to something that has happened, that this little horn is copying. In order to understand this, I want to take you to Revelation chapter 12, and you're going to see why this is so important. I want you to notice there in verse 7, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But they were not strong enough, and they lost their place in heaven. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. Now you might wonder why I bring this out, but I want you to understand that if we just jump back a little bit to verse 4, it says, his tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. So we see here, if we look at this, that this little horn here somehow copies what we read about here in Revelation chapter 12. The dragon, the devil, that serpent, hooks with his tail a third of the stars and hurls them to the earth. What are stars in symbolical language? In Revelation chapter 1, it's so beautiful we don't have to guess what stars are. Christ himself tells us what stars are. And if you look at verse 20, Christ says this, the mystery of the 7 stars that you saw in my right hand and the 7 golden lampstands is this. And then he says this, the 7 stars are the angels of the churches. So if we had to jump back to Revelation chapter 12 and we talk about the third of the stars that were hooked there, we can see that he hooks a third of the angels. So here we see how that the devil, who is an angel, has a third of the angels fighting with him against Michael and his angels. So I want you to see, this is very important, that we understand that we are introduced to a cosmic war. is not really about a political power, but it's about who is behind that power. And the interesting thing that we pick up in this study is that the devil is behind this political power, the spiritual and political power described in Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 8. You know that Jesus confirms this. In Luke chapter 10, he has just sent his disciples out to go and preach the gospel of God's kingdom to everybody. When they returned, they told Christ of what had happened. Jesus responds in verse 18 by saying, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Isn't that amazing? It's almost again a explanation of what we've just read in Revelation chapter 12. That Satan hooks his third of the stars and he falls down to the earth like lightning. But then it says further in verse 19, I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. However, do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Dear friends, as we discover this little horn and as we see that we are in this cosmic battle, I want to encourage you to choose to be on Christ's side. As you do that, your name will be written in the Lamb's book of life. And rejoice about that. Don't rejoice about the fact that you can trample on the devil, but rejoice that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life. As we look at this little horn in further discussions, I want you to know that the true power behind this great deception is the devil himself. May God guide us as we study more about this little horn in future studies.